You know, it felt like just another Tuesday night, completely and utterly ordinary. Or at least, that's what I was trying to tell myself. The old house was dead quiet, except for the familiar groans of the floorboards complaining under my restless feet. The clock had already struck 12, and my wife, Hannah, was nowhere to be seen. I had this gut feeling, this deep-seated hunch that something was seriously wrong, even though my brain was fighting hard to dismiss it. She'd mentioned some work dinner, sure, but she'd said it so casually, brushing it off like it was nothing. Looking back, her tone felt, I don't know, hollow, rehearsed. I found myself staring at my phone's blank screen for what felt like the 100th time. Not a single text, no missed calls, just radio silence. That knot of anxiety in my stomach just kept twisting tighter with every tick of the clock on the mantelpiece, its relentless precision mocking my spiraling thoughts. I was just sitting there in the gloom of the living room, stewing in it, and then, as the clock hands crept toward 2 a.m., I heard it, the distinct crunch of gravel as her car crawled into the driveway. Man, my heart hammered against my ribcage. It was a bizarre cocktail of feelings, a wave of relief that she was, at the very least, alive, immediately chased by a tidal wave of dread for what was coming next. I stayed put, a statue in my armchair, and just listened as the key fumbled in the lock and the front door creaked open. Her silhouette, framed by the sliver of moonlight piercing through the window, seemed to hesitate in the doorway. She stumbled in, her heels making these soft, uncertain clicks on the hardwood floor as she wrestled with her coat. Her every movement screamed jittery and unsteady. That's when I decided to flip on the lights. Hannah froze solid, her eyes blown wide with a terror usually reserved for seeing a ghost. Her perfectly curated composure, it had completely shattered. She took a clumsy step back, her face ghostly pale, her lips parted as if gasping for an excuse that just wouldn't form. "That's a late one," I said. My voice was unnervingly calm, which seemed to spook her even more. I just leaned back in the armchair, swirling the scotch in my glass. My gaze was locked on her, and I wasn't about to let go. You could practically see her swallow, her throat working against itself. "I told you, Daniel. The work dinner. It just ran long." Her voice had this tiny, almost imperceptible tremor. But, oh, I heard it. I heard everything. "Is that what we're calling it these days?" I shot back, arching an eyebrow. I took a long, deliberate sip of my drink, letting the silence hang in the air between us, thick and suffocating. It's funny, because last I checked, corporate dinners don't typically end with lipstick smeared all over a man's collar. You should have seen the color drain from her face. It was instantaneous. Her hand flew to her neck, her fingers brushing against the crimson evidence of her own lipstick. All of a sudden, the room felt like it was closing in, the air turning heavy with the weight of everything left unsaid. "Daniel, look, I can explain everything," she stammered, her voice now trembling uncontrollably. "Don't!" I cut her off, my tone as sharp as a razor's edge. I rose from the chair, placing my glass on the coffee table with a slow, almost theatrical precision. My body was moving in slow motion, but my mind was a raging wildfire. She instinctively shuffled backward, as if a few extra feet of space could somehow shield her from the fallout. "Don't you dare insult my intelligence by pretending there's some fairy tale explanation I'm going to swallow," I said, my voice dropping to a low growl. Every single word was loaded with the full, crushing weight of my fury and betrayal. "Who is he?" Her mouth opened, then snapped shut, and then opened again. Crickets. Her silence was a confession louder than any words could ever be. I I messed up," she finally choked out, tears starting to well up in her eyes. "It was nothing. Daniel, It was just a stupid mistake, and I regret it more than anything. Please, I scoffed, my voice turning to ice. I took a good, long look at her. Was this really the woman I'd shared a decade of my life with? The person I'd built a home with, dreamed about the future with? Right then, she was nothing but a stranger standing in my house. It meant nothing, I echoed, a bitter, humorless laugh escaping my lips. You think that makes it better? The fact that it was so completely meaningless to you that you'd happily torch our entire life for it? Her tears were a river now, carving paths through her expensive makeup. Daniel, please. It was a one-time mistake. We can fix this. I love you. That word, love, it felt like a slap across the face. Love isn't sneaking around, lying through your teeth. Love isn't stumbling home in the dead of night, reeking of another man's cologne. Love is built on trust, and believe me, she had just bulldozed that foundation into dust. Without another word, I walked right past her and grabbed my jacket from the hook by the door. "Where are you going?" she cried, raw panic coloring her voice. "Out," I said, not even bothering to look back. "Don't bother waiting up." Sleep? Yeah, that wasn't happening. I spent the rest of the night driving with no destination, the city lights blurring into a meaningless smear. Every street corner, every park seemed to hold a memory of a better, happier time. Each one, a sweet little ghost that came back to mock me. The betrayal felt like a physical wound, a jagged piece of glass twisting in my gut with every passing hour. But somewhere in that hazy wasteland between midnight and dawn, the searing pain started to crystallize into something else entirely. It became resolve. Cold, hard, and clear. I wasn't about to let this break me. If she thought our marriage was some disposable thing she could just toss aside, well, she had another thing coming. When I finally got back to the house, an eerie quiet had settled over it. Hannah was asleep. Or, at least, she was doing a damn good impression of it. Frankly, it didn't matter. My own plans were already starting to take shape. Over the next few weeks, I became the world's most convincing actor. I played the part of the wounded but willing husband to perfection. I told her I was committed to working through it, that we could rebuild what she had broken. I even sat next to her on a therapist's couch, listening to her pour out her rehearsed guilt and manufactured remorse. I nodded in all the right places, offered reassurances, and even held her while she sobbed. All the while, of course, I was methodically laying the tracks for my own brand of justice. First things first, I started digging. I gathered the evidence. Incriminating texts, late-night emails, even a few photos. Hannah, in her arrogance, had gotten sloppy, assuming I'd be too heartbroken to ever look. She had massively underestimated me. Next up, I got a lawyer on the phone. You see, I've always been meticulous with our finances, a real stickler for details, making sure most of our major assets were securely in my name. Turns out, that was a pretty damn smart move. With a rock-solid prenup backing me up, I was in an ironclad position to protect what I had built. But the final piece of the puzzle? Oh, that was the most satisfying part. I did a little digging and tracked down the other man, a smarmy, self-satisfied coworker of hers named Matt. A married coworker, as it turned out. Now, I'm not the type for messy, face-to-face confrontations. My style is a bit more elegant. I packaged up every last bit of evidence I had uncovered and sent it anonymously to his wife. Let her deal with the fallout. And then I simply waited for the other shoe to drop. The day of reckoning came a lot sooner than I'd anticipated. It was a bright Saturday afternoon when I casually suggested we throw a little dinner party for some close friends. Hannah, so desperate to project the image of a healing marriage, jumped at the idea. Poor thing had no clue what she was agreeing to. As our guests trickled in, she was the picture of the perfect hostess, all bright smiles and easy laughter, as if there wasn't a dark cloud in her world. I just watched her, a small, knowing smile playing on my own lips. About halfway through the main course, I stood up, tapping my glass for a toast. "I'd like to propose a toast," I announced, raising my glass, "to new beginnings, and, more importantly, to honesty." Hannah's perfect smile flickered for just a second, but she recovered quickly. "Here, here," she chirped, clinking her glass against mine. "Actually," I went on, letting my voice fill the sudden quiet, "I have a little story I'd like to share with you all. It's a fascinating tale about love, trust, and betrayal." The room went dead silent. I could see the panic flood Hannah's eyes as she realized, far too late, where this was headed. "Daniel," she started, her voice a desperate whisper. I just held up a hand, cutting her off. "No, no, let me finish," I said, my tone calm but utterly immovable. I turned my attention to our friends. You see, it turns out the wonderful woman I've dedicated the last 10 years of my life to has been, well, let's just say she's been exploring other career opportunities outside of our marriage. You could have heard a pin drop after the collective gasp that filled the room. Hannah looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. "But hey, don't you worry," I said, turning my gaze back to her, savoring the moment. "I've already taken care of all the messy details. The divorce papers are drawn up and ready to be signed. Our assets are quite secure. And your sordid little secret? Well, the cat's out of the bag now. Oh, and by the way, Matt says hi. Or maybe he doesn't. I hear he's a little busy dealing with his own domestic implosion at the moment." Her face just crumpled as the full weight of my words finally hit her. The tears came, but I felt absolutely nothing. No pity, no remorse. She'd made her bed, and now she was lying in it. The party, as you can imagine, ended rather abruptly. Our guests shuffled out in a state of stunned, awkward silence. Hannah tried to plead, to bargain, but I was done listening. And when she finally finished packing her bags and walked out the door for the last time, the house felt strangely, wonderfully peaceful. It wasn't the happily ever after I had once pictured for us, but it was the ending she had authored. And as I sat there, alone in the profound quiet of my living room, I realized something incredibly important.